what's unique about custom shapes is that they can form with other shapes, they can be elevated, they can be rotated in 3 different directions. We're going to create a kitchen island with a countertop, and we'll be creating the height and the elevation for those shapes, and that's really important to understand. Let's zoom in on the raised deck area off of the sliding glass door, and I'm going to start drawing at the far left-hand corner of the house where it meets that patio. Go ahead and activate your line tool. I'll draw the base of the kitchen island first. Okay, so I'm going to left click and I'm going to come up 8 feet even. I'm going to come to the right 8 feet and 6 inches. Down 3 feet even. Back to the left 5 feet 6 inches. Down 5 feet even. And then back to the left 3 feet, or just press enter to auto close your shape. Now go over to your custom shape and pergola options and choose shape. We don't want this to be a pergola. We'll draw a pergola in a minute, but we want this to be a custom shape. And we want the height of this to be 2 feet 9 inches. This is the structural height of the shape. So 2 feet 9 inches. And then make sure you go down to your object settings. You want to pay attention to your elevation here. We want to be able to control the elevation, so we want our auto elevation off, and I want the elevation to be 1 foot 6 inches. And I'm looking, that is my default. So I don't need to change anything. You can assess your value and change it if needed, but I would like the elevation, the position of it, to be 1 foot 6 inches above ground level. Okay, next we're going to use the outline tool to create the countertop. I'll go over to my toolbar, and on the bottom row I'll left click on the outline tool. There's my question mark. What shape do you want to outline? Just left click on the top line of that shape. The 8 foot 6 inch section doesn't share a space with another line, so that's a good choice. I'm just going to left click and come up 3 inches with my offset. Left click to secure the offset, and then of course we have to close our shape, so we'll trace all the way around. Just drag your cursor and highlight or trace all the way around the shape. Left click when you get back to where you started, and you'll close your shape. Okay, now we need to think about the structural height of this shape and the elevation of this shape. So I'm going to look over at my custom shape and pergola. It's a shape, and I want the height of it to be 3 inches. So 0 feet 3 inches in height. That's a structural height. Then I go down to my object settings, and I want the elevation to be 4 feet 3 inches. All right, I am going to activate my move tool, deselect those shapes, and take a look at it in 3D. Left click on your 3D toggle, and there is the kitchen island. The material is going to be just a random material. I can change that countertop. I can change the base independently when we get into the materials phase of the program. But I'm noticing here that I do have an issue on the corner next to the house. So what's happening here is the offset, the 3-inch offset, is cutting into the side of the house. And that's not a big deal. It's a minor detail, but we can fix it so easily, we might as well fix it back in 2D. So I'm going to go back into 2D, and I'm going to left click on that shape to select it, and I'm going to zoom in on it really closely because I want to be exactly in the right spot. I want my move tool to and my cursor to be on that hollow blue point in the middle of this line segment. These modification points are there so that we can make these kind of modifications. All I need to do is left click on that hollow blue point. It's going to turn that line yellow, and that's how I know I'm exactly in the right spot. I'm moving that line segment independently. I can just drag it to the next grid line. and that solves my problem. Okay, next we're going to draw a pergola. So I'm going to draw my pergola over the wood deck. So I'm going to kind of pan over and zoom in on that wood deck, and I'm going to use the outline tool to do this. It's going to be a fast, easy way to create our pergola. So I'm going to go over to the toolbar, left click on the outline tool. There's my question mark. What shape do you want to outline? I'm going to left click on the right side of the wood deck because that shape does not, or that part of the shape doesn't share a space with another shape. So that's best for the outline tool. I'm going to left click on that line and I get the offset function. Do we want to make this larger or smaller? This time I'm not going to make it larger or smaller. I'm going to make it the same. So I'm going to leave the offset right where it is, left click to lock in that position, come all the way around the shape, and when I'm back to where I started, I'm going to left click and that's going to complete my shape. I'll go over to my custom shape in Pergola, left click on Pergola, and I'll have a pergola. I'll set the height of my pergola to 10 feet 0 inches. Now the other modifications I would suggest doing in 3D. And in order to do that, all you need to do is just leave that pergola selected in 2D, go into 3D, and there's my pergola. I know it's selected because I've got the little white gizmo. Can't move it, but I know it's selected so I can make any changes through my diagram window over here. So the picture of the pergola and all the different pieces works just like the deck. You have to left click on the section of shapes that you want to change. So for example, if you left click on the columns, then you have all of the options for your columns. Square or round columns, spacing. I am setting my spacing at 14 feet 0 inches. And I'm setting the thickness to 6 inches, and that's going to give me this look. Then any other pieces that you want to change, you just go over to your diagram. The very top pieces are called the slats in your diagram. Then the ones below that in the middle are called the rafter, and the ones below that, rafter supports. Left click on rafters, and I want you to kind of zoom in on the end of the rafter. That's this curved piece right here. Get in a good position for you so you can see it. There we go. This piece right here. If you go over to your rafter options, you go down the list, there's a button next to profile. Left click on that. Let's look at some of the options for changing that profile. So there's my options. I have 6 different options. I can double click and apply the different profiles. All right, so I think my pergola looks really good. I'm going to close my library. I'm going to go back into 2D and left click away from my shape and save all of my work in the top left hand corner and go to the next stage. That's going to take me to stage 9, materials. Stage 9 materials is where we apply the different materials to the shapes in our project, and you can apply any material to any shape. So what I want to start with is the library over on the left hand side. You're going to see 2 separate categories, from brick down to wood. Those are the generic materials. Then you have artistic pavers down to wet edge. Those are manufacturers. We call them our vendor partners, and these are just manufacturers that want their products in our library and make them available to you. If you see a green circle with an exclamation point, that means that in the last update there were new materials added. To the right of that, you're going to have the number of materials, and then you have the white triangle where you can left click and you can see the subcategories. And because there are a lot of times a very large number of materials, you'll want to look at the subcategories and kind of narrow your options down. Down at the bottom of the library, you have your currently used library. You have favorites and history. I'll show you how to save your favorites to your favorites library. Over on the right hand side, you have your panel menu, and you have your Your move tool, not really necessary. We're going to do all of our work here in 3D, but you know, all of those drawing tools and all the other tools are gone because that's not the objective here anymore. We are just going to stay in 3D and apply materials. And you have your material, let's see, it looks like I have my window closed there. I have quick selection, and in my quick selection I can left click on a category of shapes, and that's a fast way to apply material to like objects like all of the hardscape or all of the coping or all of the planters. Then you go down and you have material manipulation. I'll cover that in a minute when I have some material changes. But getting back to quick selection and selecting, you can use either the quick selection and select, you know, multiple objects, or you can double left click on an object independently. Let's start by using the quick selection and clicking on Hardscape. I'm going to click on Hardscape, and when I bring my cursor over, I'm going to have all of my hardscape highlighted. And it's very likely that I'm going to put the same material on all those, so that's a good thing. I'm going to come over to, oh, one more thing. Notice that the surface becomes red and kind of pulses a little bit. That means that your shape, that these are the shapes that are selected, right? So I can go over to my library and I can go to my, let's see, we'll go up in the generic, and let's say we want to put stamped concrete on this. I'm going to left click on the drop down arrow and left click on stamped concrete. And that's going to load all of the images of all the samples of stamped concrete. I'm going to double click and apply one. Okay. You can double click on any material. There's an apply material down at the bottom, but double clicking is a little bit faster. You just kind of keep double clicking and look at your different options and different patterns. If you see one and it is maybe something that you are very familiar with and something that you use a lot, mark it as one of your favorites, and a copy of this material will go into your favorites library. Go to the top right hand corner of that little thumbnail pane and left click on the gray star, and it will become a gold star, and it's marked in your favorites. You have that little sample in your favorites as well. So I'm going to pan over and I am going to double click on the top of my kitchen countertop. That's a custom shape, and there really isn't a quick selection for custom shapes. So you double click on them independently. I'm going to come back over to my library and I'm going to close what I had opened. It's a good habit to get into. Uncheck your stamped concrete, close the concrete drop down list, and then what I want you to do is go to stone and left click on the drop down list there, and we're going to look for granite. Double click on any one of the granite options, and whatever one you choose is the last one you double click on. Now I'm going to uncheck my granite and I'm going to close my library, or close the subcategory list, and I'm going to show you an example of how you would manipulate your material. So if you are looking at a material choice and you say, well, that's pretty close, but it's not exactly the right color. I'd like for that to be a slightly different color. You can go over to your material manipulation. You can scale and rotate your material. You can pan your material, but what I'm referring to is this color wheel and this HSV button. If you wanted to completely change the color, you would use the color wheel and make it blue or green or yellow. That really doesn't apply to what I'm doing with my countertop. If I want to make that countertop a little bit darker or lighter, what I would do is go to my HSV. And when you click on that button, you see the color is kind of separated into three different categories: the color, the brightness, and the color strength or saturation. And I just want to make it a little darker or lighter. So I would go to the brightness and just kind of click on different parts. There we go. And I'm going to make it a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. When you get the color that you want, if that's a color or a material that you use a lot, then save that change to the library. That's down at the very bottom left-hand corner. Just save that and, name it whatever, your catalog name is, Toffee Onyx number 3 or whatever the catalog names it. And that way you'll know that's the one that you modified and that's the one that is the right color. If you want to clear your selection, go to the top of your screen and left click on the circle with the line through it. So we just did a few material changes, but when you're working on your own, you can change any of the materials. You can change the sides of your hardscapes, the tops of your hardscapes. I'm going to go ahead and save my work and move on to the next stage. And that's going to take me to stage 10, plants and trees. This is where we're going to insert our plants and trees. We're going to do that in 2D, so click on your 2D toggle. And before we start inserting our plants and trees, I'd like to show you some settings. If you go up to the top left-hand corner of your screen and left-click on your VizTerra icon, go down the list until you click on Configuration. And the configuration window is going to open. There are several tabs across the top. The one that we want to look at is the Library tab. Go ahead and click on that. These are some options that are going to affect how your library looks. First one says Show Symbols in Library here. That means that with this red X you will see pictures of plants and trees in your library, and that's typically what you want. So that's why there's a red X by default. But if you ever wanted to adjust your symbols, change your symbols, you could put a green check mark there and you would be able to change your symbols. Below that you have your default new landscaping to symbols, and that means that when you insert plants and trees into your grid space, you will see symbols. If you turn that off, you will see little colored pictures. Just personal preference there. Default new item animations on. So that means that in our library, if you have any items that are animated in the library, they're considered animated items. They're going to be animated in your presentation. Default new landscaping animations on means that if you put your landscaping in, you go into 3D, you're going to see just a very subtle breeze blowing through your plants and trees. It's really a nice effect. Auto open libraries, great. Random scale, random rotate rockwork is typically what you want, a natural variation. Then you have auto favorite library items. Why not? Sounds like a good idea to me. New item notification, that's that green circle with the exclamation point. If you ever want to clear those, you can. And then you have plant naming convention. Would you rather see your plants named in their common name or botanical? Okay, now we're going to click on this Set Plant Zones button and take a look at this. You can itemize what zones you're seeing in your library, what zones plants are available in the library. So if there's any that you know you don't want to see, you can put a red X on those. If you've made any changes, go down to the bottom and you click OK. And here again, if you've made any changes, we still have our configuration open. You need to apply those changes in the bottom right-hand corner. So click on Apply and then click OK. We're finished. All right, now we're ready to put our plants and trees in, but I want to make some changes to my settings. This is something that I do when I make the transition from the design phase to plants and trees and yard accessories. Go up to the top of your grid and open up your snaps and constraints and uncheck your grid option or put a red X on that so you don't have that grid snap, and that way objects and plants and trees will move freely in this 2D space. And then go down to angle snaps and set that to none so it removes the relative angle snaps and you can rotate your shapes freely. The other thing I do is I look over at my panel menu and go to my object settings and turn my auto elevation on. So that way if I've taken anything and moved it up or down or applied an elevation, changed the elevation, now auto elevation is on, and as I put in these plants and trees, they're going to go to the right elevation. Auto elevation is going to put things where it thinks they need to go elevation wise. So I'm going to do a search in my search window at the very top. Let's say at the very top of the library, let's say that we want to put some crepe myrtles back in the back planter, that big planter back there, but we're not really sure where the crepe myrtles are, and we're going to try and do this quickly. So we're just going to do a quick search. And if you left click in that search bar, you can type in CRAPE. That's all you need to type in. System will pull up everything that has those letters in it or that word in it. Click on search, and there are all my crepe myrtles. Now go down to the bottom of your library, and I want to show you the thumbnail size slider. You can make those thumbnails bigger by left clicking and dragging that bar to the right, and that gives you the full title. You can see your plants a little bit easier. You can choose any one that you like. Left click on it, and then go down to the very bottom and left click on the insert that has the 2 white arrows beside it. That is the insert multiple option. Left click on that, and when you bring your cursor over, you're going to have a symbol of a crepe myrtle. You can put it on that planter. There's another one. So I'll put a few crepe myrtles in here, and then I'll right click to get rid of the last one that I need. When you insert a template like this, a symbol, there's a box around it. You can scale and rotate using these corner options and this top option. And you can also do that in 3D. So I kind of want to show you how to do that in 3D. When you use the insert multiple, you drop in as many items as you want, and then you right click to get rid of the last one. You'll be probably using the insert multiple, more than the insert one when you're working with plants and trees. Let's go into 3D and take a look. So in 3D, you can double click on any of your plants and trees and you'll get the gizmo. So you can move it. You probably don't want to move it up or down with the blue arrow, but the arrows down at the bottom would be handy if you wanted to move it forward or to the left or to the right, forward or backward. So if you have the gizmo attached to a plant, you can do 3 things with that gizmo. That gizmo can be in 3 different modes. And if you look up at the top of your tools, you'll see the 3 tools that apply: the move, the rotate, and the scale. So if I wanted to rotate this, I'm going to kind of give myself a closer perspective here. If I wanted to rotate this tree, I would left click on rotate, and there's my rotate function attached to the gizmo. So I can just take my cursor over the blue arrow and rotate that around whatever direction I want to go. Okay. You can also scale this using the gizmo. So you can make these larger or smaller. Just go over to the scale function, take your cursor over the gizmo, hold down your left mouse button, and move your mouse forward to scale it up or towards you to scale it down. Just kind of left click and drag, forward or backward. So that's a nice option. You can clear your cursor by clicking on the circle with the line through it in the top of the screen. All right, now I am going to go back into 2D and I'm going to put some more plants and trees in. Left click on the 2D option. Now I saved some plants to my favorites. When you're working on your own, you're going to put whatever plants and trees you want in. But I've got some saved to my favorites. Remember, if you click on the gray star in the top right-hand corner, you will change that gray star to a gold star, and those plants and trees go in your favorites. And that's a good idea. You are definitely going to have to, you're going to have your go-to materials. You're going to go have your go-to plants and trees. So make sure that you're marking all of those things that you use a lot as your favorites. So I'm going to insert some English lavender shrubs. I still have my scale tool, so I'm going to activate my move tool. So I'm just dropping in those shrubs, and then I'm right clicking to get rid of the one that I don't want. And I'm going to fill my planter up here. Let me zoom in a little bit. And one more, some black-eyed Susans. And then I usually insert them in 2D, and then I go to 3D and see what they look like. And if I need to use the gizmo on anything, then I can. I can add more plants and trees to this. If you want to align your plants and trees to the slope, you can. Probably not your trees. That's not going to be too common. But like, for example, the shrubs right here. If I wanted to align those to the slope, I have a feature for that. And I have a feature to select all of these. So with this selected, I'm going to go over to my object modification. And there's a matching button there. I'm going to left click on matching, and all of those are matching. That way I can work with all of them at the same time. I use this all the time. This is very, very helpful. Now go down to the very bottom of your panel menu. We haven't been down here yet to the aligning section. First time we've had an example for this. Just click on the align to slope. See where it says to slope, and there's a little picture of a slope there. Left click on that, and it just changes the position of your plants as far as relative to the slope. That really comes in handy with things like rock work and ground cover, especially when you have big patches of flowers. Really helpful to know how to align them to the slope. All right, so one thing that you will probably notice is that when you've got a small space, this is a relatively small yard, and then we've got a big 2-story house. You know, I'm battling this house constantly. I'm always running into it because I want to see my plants and trees. If you go back into 2D, you can go up to your hide and unhide in your application bar, and you can hide your house and you can hide your pergola. And that will definitely give you a little bit more freedom to move around. When I go back into 3D now, I can kind of come back and look at this from, you know, a bigger perspective and back off and look at it and make sure everything's balanced and spaced correctly, all those good things. So I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go back into 2D, and I'm going to leave my house and my pergola hidden because that's also going to come in handy when I do my accessorizing, which is what we're going to do next. I'm going to save my work up in the top left-hand corner, and I'm going to go to the next stage, and that's going to take me to stage 11, yard accessories. In yard accessories, we have a large library to work with. If you look over at your library, you see that you have accessories down to visual features are going to be a darker gray. That's the generic accessories. Then below that, you have Arbors Direct down to Stone Hardscapes, and those are the vendor partners, the manufacturers that want their products available in our library. And it really increases the number of options for you. So, you know, when you have a little bit of time, take a look at those, and they're great accessories. So one thing that I think is really important to include in accessories is furniture. It really helps people understand the scale of the space. It fills the space in, makes the space feel like it, you know, makes more sense. Let's put some furniture on the wood deck area. And so I'm going to look over in the library, and I've already picked out the furniture for us. We're going to left click on the drop down arrow so we don't have to look through all 400 pieces of furniture, and go down to the iron set. They're in alphabetical order. Just click on iron set, and there's a chair set with a fire pit. Left click on that and insert one and bring that over to the wood deck. Now I'm going to zoom in on that. I am going to take advantage of the rotating tool here. The box that you see around the template has the scaling and the rotating functions directly on it. I'm going to rotate this and move it. All those shapes are kind of stuck together. We call it grouping. And so you can rotate and move them all as one. So I'm good with that. Now I know from experience that this fire pit doesn't have fire in it. So I'm going to put some fire in it. I'm going to uncheck iron set, close that drop down window, otherwise I'll never find what I'm looking for. So that's a good habit to get into. Now look for visual features. It's the very last generic category. And we'll go ahead and just click on everything because I want to show you what's here. You've got fire and you've got water features. So if you need any water features, those are here. And fire is what we're looking for at the very top. I'm going to choose this one at the very top. I'm going to left click on it and insert one, and I'm going to drop it in. And I'm going to zoom in on it. See, it's a really small little white square with a dashed line around it. And that dashed line is showing you what the radius of the fire is. And if you have your fire selected, you can look over at your panel menu and you will have fire options. Any of your visual features that you insert will have options in this panel menu that you can make adjustments to those features. So fire options, the height's good, but I'm going to change the radius to 9 inches. And here's another really good tip for you. Leave your fire selected in 2D so that when you go into 3D, the gizmo is on it. Go ahead and left click on 3D. And I'm going to find my fire. Can't miss the fire there because the gizmo is so big. I'm zooming in on it. Well, the fire's not there, but the gizmo is. And I know what happened. Auto elevation did not recognize this wood pile, and it kind of just set the fire down on the deck. And that's why it's very helpful to have your smaller shapes like this selected. And I'm going to bring that up with the blue arrow, and there's my fire. So I clear my cursor. I'm going to kind of zoom in on this. It just looks so realistic. And if you press the letter N on your keyboard, that changes to day, dusk, there's dusk, and nighttime. And you can see what that fire looks like at night. And then I'll change back to day. So I've got a couple of accessories in there. I've got the furniture, and I've got the fire pit with the fire. I would definitely put lighting in any project. I think that that's really a wow factor. When you go into nighttime and you have kind of twinkling lights and pretty lights everywhere, it's very inviting, very pretty. Makes a pretty picture too for your screenshots. So let's go back into 2D and let's start working with some lights. Go back into 2D. Back in 2D, I'm going to start putting some lights in. I'm going to uncheck my visual features in my library, and I'm going to go to my light category, and I'm going to left click on the subcategory list, drop down list, and look for the pool and spa lights. We'll use a spa light because it's a pretty small water feature. We don't want too much light. So if you click on pool and spa lights, you're going to see first pool lights, and just keep scrolling down until you get to your spa light. I'm just going to put a white spa light in. They're very small, but they're very easy to work with because they snap on to the inside of bodies of water. So if I insert one and bring my cursor over, I have this very, very small shape attached to my cursor. I'm just going to touch it on the inside of that, left click and drop it in, and I would go over probably and check and make sure my auto elevation is on. And if your auto elevation is off, turn it on. That will auto elevate that and probably put it where it's supposed to go. Auto elevation usually does. We'll leave it selected in 2D so that when we go into 3D, we have the gizmo already attached to it. So I'm going to click on 3D, and I'm going to zoom in here, rotate around, see if I can find it using my pan feature a lot. There we go. I found it. It's inside there right where it's supposed to be. So I don't have to use the gizmo to move it up or down. I'm just going to get rid of the gizmo, and it looks like it is going to produce some light as soon as I make it dark. So I'm going to press the N for night, and that's going to take me to dusk, which is already pretty. And then I'm going to press N again, and now I'm at nighttime. Really pretty reflection of that caustic movement of the water. Nice addition there to add lights. And I would light up the entire space. You see how dark it is? So when you're working on your own, take the time to put your garden lights in and uplight the trees and put the lights on the house, any kind of extra light that's needed. You can use your staging lights is a really neat feature over here. But that's really all we're going to do for accessorizing. I wanted to put some furniture in. We added some fire and some lighting, so those are neat features. But that gets you off to a good start. I'll go ahead and uncheck my pool and spa lights, close my library up, and save my work. Then I'll go to the next stage, and that's going to take us to stage 12, create presentation. Here in stage 12, we're going to look at some of our settings for creating a presentation, and I'm going to turn my daylight back on by pressing the letter N for night, and I'm going to click on the 2D toggle, going back into 2D. And if you look at the top of your panel menu, you see photo mode and video mode. And photo mode is an editing feature. Video mode is a storyboard video function. And if you want to learn more about those, you can go to the top left-hand corner and left-click on this orange question mark. That is actually a link to the help page for any stage that you're in. So if there's anything that we didn't cover in fundamentals or anything that you forgot or have a question about, if you're in that stage and you look over and you say, I can't remember how to do this, just click on that question mark and it takes you to a help page for this stage, for everything that you can do in this stage. And that's true in all of the stages. Down below that you have designer info overlay. This is the displays that are going to be on your screenshot. So if you are in presentation at any time, you can take screenshots. And those screenshots are really handy. You can show your client a presentation using, screenshots. You can do a live presentation, and then maybe, once they've signed the deal, maybe you'll email them those screenshots, and they're going to show them to their friends and their family and their coworkers. And you really want your name on your work. So that's what this is all about, putting your name on your work, your logo, your name, your designer name. You can even put your client's name if you think they would like that. But the logo gets loaded in stage 1, project information. And I'll show you how to get there. If you go to the top of your grid and you click on your fundamental training file name, we're back at project information. And we have options to go to the start screen or the media viewer. But what I'm looking for is the logo box. And right here it says logo. You can left click on that, add your logo, and you only have to load it one time. Every time you open your software, it's going to be here unless you change it. So if it's loaded here and you choose to show it as your part of your overlay on your screenshots, then your name will be on your work, and that'll be a good thing. People will know who does this cool 3D stuff. So I'm going to go back where we were by clicking on the same little fundamental title bar right here. All right, now over in the time of day and sun, you can choose what time of day to start your presentation, what you want your sunset to look like. And it looks like I'm starting in the day, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and go into presentation mode. But before I go into presentation mode, there's one thing that I need to remember to do, and that is to unhide the things that I hid. So I'm going to go up to the top of my grid, open up my hide and unhide, and unhide my house and unhide my pergola so they're part of my presentation. Now over at the top of the panel menu, left click on presentation. When you first go into presentation mode, you are going to be in walk mode. And that is just moving at an eye level perspective. You can left click to move forward, right click to move back, and you're just moving your mouse to look at what you want to look at. You can come around and maybe go in the door and kind of begin your presentation from there. So I'm kind of going through the door. It's just like driving, right clicking actually is reverse. Left clicking makes you go forward, but this is the view from the door. This is a view from the door. I'm going to left click and kind of go through the door there and just kind of look around. Just take your time. And as you look at everything, talk about the choices that you made for the material and the finishes and the design, the shape. And I'm just kind of looking down at the pavers here or the stamped concrete. Okay, and I'm looking around. Try to make it as literal as possible, just like as if you were really, walking through this space, and then walk forward. Maybe talk about the plant choices. Look at the water feature. You could put a sconce effect on that. That would be really pretty, and it would sound really pretty too. But you're just going to walk around. If you want to at any time, take a picture. So I'm kind of getting my focus here, and I'm going to press the letter P for picture. P for picture. You're going to get a pop-up that says picture taken. And there's a picture waiting for me back in the media room, or on the media page, and I'll show you where that is. You can press the letter N for night. That's going to, that's dusk. That's pretty. You take a picture of that. Press the letter P, another screenshot. Then press N for night. I would use more lighting. It's not really lit up enough. I would put up like the trees and have some other garden lights and things like that. But I'm going to press the letter N again. Everything that you're going to do is with keyboard shortcuts because you don't have any interface. You don't have anything to click on. So you're just moving around the space. Let me get a picture of that planter. Press the letter P. Maybe come over to the pergola and add a picture of that, or move in a little closer and take a picture of the fire pit. Okay, so you can left click to move forward, right click to move backward. You can also go into fly mode, and that comes in handy if you want to look at this from a different perspective. Right now we're kind of locked into walk mode, looking at this from an eye level perspective. But if you press the letter F for fly, nothing's really going to change yet, but the way that you move through the space has now changed. What I would recommend that you do is just move your mouse towards you so that you're looking down at the ground, and then hold down your right mouse button, and you're going to fly backwards. And that's going to kind of take you up in the air, and you can fly around. Take an aerial screenshot if you want to. Fly over to the neighbor's house and show your client that, any privacy concerns that they had were taken care of. Maybe take some pictures at different angles. If you want to get back down on the ground, you can press W on your keyboard, and that's going to put me back down on the ground. Now I'm in walk mode again. If you want to see all of the hotkeys and all of the features for presentation mode, you can press the escape key on your keyboard. You're going to get a little pop-up window, and that's going to give you all of your options. And if you press escape again, that goes away. So that's a little cheat sheet for you. And to access the media that you've taken, you can exit out of presentation mode by pressing the letter X on your keyboard. X for exit. Think of it like that, and that'll be easy to remember. Now we're back in stage 12 where we were, and we want to see our screenshots. Go to the top left-hand corner of your screen and left click on the icon that looks like pictures. It's right next to the question mark. Left click on that, and that takes us to our media viewer. So we just did screenshots, so that's what we've got here. But if I'd taken any video or created a video, that would be here too. And then over on the right-hand side, I have ways to link to like my social media, my Facebook, my YouTube. Double click on those images, we'll open them. You can attach them to emails. To get back where we were, go to the fundamental file title bar right here and left click on that, and that's going to take us back where we were. So that's everything that I wanted to cover for fundamentals. We did a complete design from beginning to end, working through each phase and stage of the program. And I want to thank you for watching the video, and thank you for using VizTerra. If you have any questions or need support, please call 800-778-8996.